The journey is conversations with ordinary people about stories of transformation and how we may have had setbacks in our life and how we persevered through those, how we've learned from those obstacles, and how they've maybe helped us on our path today. Well, welcome to the journey. My name is Kevin Polky, and I am the host of the journey. And we have a special guest with us today, Britney Lynea. And Brittany, welcome to the journey. I know that we've been in contact and following each other through social media, and then we had an opportunity to meet a few weeks ago and get to know a little bit about the different things that you're involved with. But welcome to the journey.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah. So Brittany, why don't you, as I always start off with asking, so when you have an opportunity, in spite of all the different things that you're involved with, what does Brittany do to have fun?
I like to stay active. I do a lot of hiking, biking, being with nature type stuff. I obviously own a personal training studio, but I believe in balance. So not only developing healthy life patterns inside of the gym, but outside of the gym. So I like to be outdoors a lot when it's nice. Sometimes I'll go skiing or snowboarding in the winter, but mainly I'll like work in the gym in the winter time and then spend a lot of time outdoors when it's nice out.
And if you have a in the greater Rockford area, if you have a go-to place to be outside and hiking or just being outside around Rockford, where's your go-to place in the Rockford area?
I would say rock cut is
Oh,
definitely in our area that I think a lot of people don't think of. And you can just kind of disconnect and do biking, hiking. They even have kayaks out there if you want to rent them. It's just a really cool place to go to get away from all the rustle and bustle of your normal life.
yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I grew up in the Harlem school district, and as teenagers and as kids, we always were going out there. And then, during that window of time during my young adult years, I wasn't going out there that much. And then I started enjoying it again as an adult. And I agree with you. It's in our backyard, and a lot of times people forget all about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so now, Brittany, where are you from? Where growing up? Where was that at?
So I grew up outside of Forreston in Durham Valley. My parents had a working horse ranch. We were very involved in 4-H with showing horses and dogs and just like being a good union within that. And then my family is very involved in the church. So we're a very balanced family when it came to like activities and then helping others and things like that. But I grew up out there, and then at 17, I moved to Milwaukee to pursue modeling and acting. And then I didn't really think that that would pilot me into doing all my fitness stuff. But then my first job in the city was working at Export Fitness at 17, almost 18, I think. And it just kind of opened up a lot of avenues for me, not only health wise to help others, but also within myself. Um, and it's something I definitely practice to this day, 20 years later, just helping people with the overall balance of health, not just what you're seeing on the outside, but your mental state and your overall wants in life do kind of pull into you being a healthy person, not just like your movements.
So I'm just interested for some of our audience. At 17 years old, you make this transition from basically a smaller community,
Yeah.
Forreston, Germantown, to Milwaukee, and you were in this very uh, it's a unique world of the modeling and fitness world, and so what was that transition like as you look back at the 17-year-old Brittany? What was that transition like?
I realized I was raised very sheltered, because not so much Milwaukee, but when I moved to Chicago, I realized like how blessed my life was because a lot of homeless, a lot of people that aren't as fortunate, and then really taking advantage of all the people I've fallen into their paths. And I'm really good at like learning from others. I'm never to be one to think that you're my competition. I just want to learn from anybody and anybody, and I absorb that gift. And I think that's how I've grown, not only as a person but as a business, because I want to be around like-minded people that have that open mind frame.
Yeah, can I just imagine? I mean, I remember, you know, because of bodybuilding, I ended up being around, getting introduced to mostly the Chicago area. We'd have a lot of the primary competitions in Illinois were in the Chicagoland area, and so we were going into Chicago, you know, at least once a month, if not more often, for somebody from the gym here in Rockford was competing somewhere, and it was such a different world. And I, of course, you know, that the whole aspect of, they talk about in social psychology of, egocentric. You know, I thought everyone was seeing things through the same lens that I saw the world. And I didn't realize till much later that, you know, by bodybuilding in the 80s was such a minor sport and was not, outside of Arnold Schwarzenegger, it was not really known outside of the people that were involved with it. We, of course, thought everyone, you know,
Right.
knew about it, but it was just our small little world, you know.
Yeah, perception's huge. And I felt the same way, like, because I came from a town of 80 people per class to one where it's thousands. And you do feel like a little ant in a anthill. But I think if you grasp onto the people that want to help you and see value, you really can grow in those types of areas. It's just not putting yourself in a box. Like a lot of people, they'll put themselves in a box and they'll think less of themselves or whatever when there's more people, but it's just more room to grow within anything that you're doing, either physical or mental or spiritual. I do really well in those types of environments because I very much gravitate towards people that are like that just want to grow.
Sure. And I think, you know, I think sometimes the biggest challenge that we have I could just speak for myself, you know, still today, but definitely when I was younger, was this idea of what are other people going to be thinking? Now, I
Yeah,
may have had this sense about me that that didn't matter, because once I set my mind to something, that's what I was going to do. But there still was that back there, that the fear of, you know, making a mistake, fear of being judged, fear of, you know, hurting someone else, and then, you know, having that turn back onto me, I think as you said, can have a tendency to keep you in that box unless the world is thrusting you forward. When you were, you know, you said a couple times about the idea of balance, and so maybe share, you know, when you refer to balance, and especially in the worlds of fitness and modeling and more of this, the outside appearance. I don't know if we always hear about what does that mean to be balanced inside and out.
I think a lot of people, especially when they're going like into a health journey, they think they got to go buy the gallon of water and go, pound all the protein powder. And honestly, it's about more natural things, like more actual foods that you can get and the balance of it. Like you can't just go 100 miles per hour and expect to get to the end. You're going to burn out. So the older I've gotten, I'm 36 now. I started this, 20 years ago. I've learned that and practiced that. I've been burned out. I went into a competition 10 years ago and I burned myself out. I might have got second place overall, but I learned a lot about it, that everything needs balance and you need that within your physical health, your mental health, even your circle you keep. You can't, be the person everybody's counting on, Mother Teresa or whatever, because then you're going to burn out. So having balance in everything that you do in life, physical, mental, your circle, spiritual, it's just really mindful to know that you can't do it all today. And you have to have balance within everything because it's the building blocks of the little steps you take towards something that's going to make it worth having or worth keeping. If you did it all today, you wouldn't be grateful for it. And then you would be like, oh, now what? So I think developing those patterns takes time because when we're younger or impatient, more or less, we want it all today. But that's not how you build gratitude.
No, I agree with you. I think about the different, regardless if it was football or wrestling, and especially bodybuilding, where, we would train for a show for so many weeks or months for that show, and thinking that it had everything to do with that particular Saturday, that particular whatever the outcome was. And in reality, it was really what I learned about myself along the journey was really what then utilized moving forward. When I needed to draw on those things, it wasn't based upon how I placed or how I looked at the competition or how we did in the season as much as it was about what I learned preparing for that. And but I couldn't see that at the time. It was so fixated on, and understandably so. When I work with athletes now, we talk about this idea of living within this paradox of giving 100% effort in the preparation at the same time, knowing that the outcome doesn't matter. And I think that I know that when I was 20, 16, 22, I was not balanced in that at all. It was all about the outcome, even if I did try to put on, oh yeah, it's part of the process, but it was all about the outcome. And it took a long time, years later, to learn that it was really about living within that paradox.
Yeah, 100%.
So when you think back to the last time that you competed in a bodybuilding fitness pageant, or show, and you refer to being burned out, yeah, maybe we hear that word used a lot to describe. I heard it being said the other day that someone was describing, that one of their employees had worked, like 45 hours that week. And they said that they were burned out, and this was the manager was who was working 60 plus hours every week and going, no, you worked a full week. It wasn't burned out. You worked a full week. So when you think back to that time period that you described as being burned out, what was that experience like? What was that? Yeah. How would you describe, what was happening when you went through that difficult time?
I think that I didn't really know back then at 26, like how to balance work life, uh, together. I would always just push all my time into one little spot, and if I had the time, I'd do it. And same with like recovery. I didn't do like any type of yoga, stretching, any type of mindfulness or letting go. Or I've always been like a Mother Teresa, so I just stacked things on top of me, and I didn't really believe in balance, or I didn't practice it. I would just do as much as I could within the hours I, let myself have, for work and working out. And I really, at the end of the 3 months of prep, felt very burnt out because I never gave myself a chance to relax or, unwind. It was like you're always trying to run the rat race and run it better than everybody else. And you never think of the recovery part until it's like too late and your body's like either getting sick or your body needs like rest and recovery to where you don't really have any other choice. So the older I've gotten, and I'm going to go do another show here in 2 months, it's really taught me the balance of, the good and the bad and the work to the rest. And you have to have both to be able to be complete. Otherwise, you're always going to feel that burnout phase, no matter what you do, no matter what calories you put in, or whatever amount of positive things you're putting in your life. You need the, lax part too, where you're resting and doing yoga and maybe doing absolutely nothing some days just for your overall mental health. And that's okay. Like, it's not going to set you back to where, or even having a pizza, like it just like all these things people think that if they do it, then they got to throw the towel in. It's not a towel thing. It's just you had a hiccup and now you need to keep going. And a lot of people don't think like that. They eat the donut in the morning and they're like, oh, lunch is, nothing now. I might as well go have a pizza. And it's like, no, you just had a little, a little thing happen. It doesn't mean you throw the whole thing away. So I didn't really know that in my 20s, or at least practice that. And going around now, that's something that I really do believe in, and try to live by.
Yeah, and I look at I resemble that. I think would say to other people about making sure that you rest and making sure that, you take time to, have that recovery time. But I think I had a different standard for myself.
Mhm.
And I'll be talking about this here in the next few weeks, but just a few weeks ago, and as you know, I had hip replacement surgery, and in trying to be more mindful as I return and recover from this surgery versus some other setbacks that I've had regarding injuries. Um, I'm trying to do it a little bit different. And just recently I had a setback that I did not at all expect and didn't see why it was happening. And it was literally about the muscle itself was the strength was there, but the stamina wasn't there.
Right.
And and I remember thinking to myself, and that was why it was spasming and why I was in so much pain. And I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to get stamina at the same time of balancing, pushing it, and so it's been interesting observing and listening to not only my body, but listening to other people that are on my recovery team, helping me come back from the surgery. So yes, I that's why I wanted to ask you about when you talk about, at that time burnout and now getting ready for this competition, what things are you doing differently and how do you feel about it as you're coming through?
Um, I think this time I'm definitely listening to my body. Before it was like take more pre-workout, take more burners, do whatever you needed to do to perform it. And then mind you, I was doing figure before, which I didn't really know a lot of. I just kind of went into it because I liked the posing opposed to bikini. And I feel like bikini, not that it's easier, but I don't think my body will have to go through as much changes as it would have to go through a figure because you had to build a lot more muscle. So to build muscle is one thing and to lean out's another. So I think I'm just being more mindful. And then also if I have like yesterday, I didn't feel the best. So I rested and stretched and did some yoga and meditated and that was okay. It wasn't like a day behind to where I'm like, oh crap, now I'm gonna be this much less. It was it was almost like a thankfulness of like, you know your body enough to then take this little break. So then today I can be more productive, be no different than you taking time off work. Like people need to think about their bodies in that type of sense. Like you can't just keep going with your body and expect it just to pick itself up. So you need both recovery and the momentum to keep going. But you have to be mindful that you are human and you're not a superhero and you have to take those steps back to be able to go forward. You can't just keep going. And then at one point, your body's going to want to give up for you because you never gave it that option. So I definitely do that more often than not. When before I don't think I had stopped working out the whole time I prepped last time. It was a 3 month fully in, no days of rest, because I thought that that would be better. And now that I'm older and kind of learned from that experience, I'm learning that recovery is just as important as doing the actual transition to build the muscle and lean out and all those things.
Sure. And we know this as trainers and coaches. We know that when we're working with our athletes, that yes, it is important to make sure that you do the not only the exercise correctly, but use enough resistance to tear the muscle tissue down, but to fuel the muscle and give it time for recovery is as important as the time and the exercise you do in the gym. And I think that like many people, they think that growth comes in the gym, where in actuality, that's only one part of it, essential as it is, but it's only one part of it.
Yeah, the diet's huge. I think a lot of people, especially in our day right now, they think like if I starve myself, I'm going to be skinny, and it's like a total opposite reaction. Like I eat almost 2,700 calories a day, and I'm building muscle and leaning out. So obviously, different days, different method, but people today think if they eat less, they're going to lose weight, but then they're not feeding the muscle. They got to feed the muscle, and the muscle should be breaking down the fat, not your body eating itself. So that's something in the training world I've talked to a lot of gym owners even about. That's kind of or taking back steps, because then in the long run you're going to burn yourself out because you need calories to be able to burn fat, not less of. So then your body is doing the opposite. So that's super frustrating right now in our society because that's kind of what everybody is kind of doing, or a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that has been a mindset for a long time period. And then in my world, in the counseling world, then you have people that then struggle with body image dysformity, and then that ties into dysregulated eating patterns, then later eating disorders. And there is this whole thing about the only way that I can look the way that I want my body to look is then of about restriction. And then they hear someone like yourself talking, is that as you're getting ready for this particular day, you're actually eating more calories. It's just what you're eating that may be different than what you're doing with your body as far as, the exercising part. So just to ask, you said you took a 10-year break from competing. And what made you decide at this time period to get into another show? What was your why to get into a show again?
So I did my last show to get away from a mental thing I was going through from a past relationship, which I should have dealt with prior to going into it because the mental stress of it all was too overbearing to then change your body like that. And I realized that after. I went down a 8-year spiral of having hypothyroidism, which made me gain up to 180 pounds. I usually sit at 130, down to my regular 130 when it switched to hyper. And then I realized within 2 years of being hyper that I was being over medicated, by not only anxiety meds, but thyroid meds. Um, and so I took everything into my own hands. I know that's not always looked at as well, but a lot of the things that were happening to my body were from just not eating correct foods, not correct foods, meaning not eating healthy, but non-chemical based foods. So I was eating just like the cheaper chicken and the, beef. And so I went all grass fed, natural, organic, and I don't eat any dairy whatsoever except for feta, and every single thing that they ever diagnosed me with then corrected itself, and if even got better.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm doing this again, because I kind of want to prove to myself that A, I'm not going to get sick, and B, um, it's just a personal choice when you're a coach and you're training all these people and helping them. Training yourself becomes kind of mundane, or like you just do it because you need to be healthy. So to put yourself in this type of situation or mental state, or want to be more than the typical average, health person, it's very much of a challenge. And then also just a really cool thing to kind of prove to yourself, because it all comes down to the diet. You don't really train, like you train a little bit different, but in all sense, the macro dieting is where you lean out to not. And I think that that's a strength within your own brain, that you either have or you don't. And that's why a lot of people, they need to use coaches, or because they need to be prepped mentally to be able to get there, because a lot of people, they do deal with their mental issues through food. If I'm in a bad day, I want to go have a beer, or if I have, they always have a thing that they're rewarding themselves with, and it's always food. It's either a sugar base or a drink or a carb. So I think having the mental strength to be able to combat that is a huge thing that a lot of humans don't have. So I'm just kind of doing this to A, prove to myself that I can, I'm not going to get sick, and B, just to kind of compete within myself, because I don't need to compete against anybody else. I just need to compete against the person I am today, and then who I want to be going forward. That's all I really need as a coach, to prove to myself that I can.
Sure. Well, and I think like you said, I think it always is when I was the different time periods when I was coaching or training people or whatever it may have been, I wouldn't bring my student athletes through a new program if I hadn't already done the exercises. So, and if I didn't think they were beneficial for me, then I wasn't going to have my athletes do those. And I know that I had an advantage over teaching it to someone someone else if I had worked through those subtle aspects of each movement and learned how to do the movement myself. It was made it easier for me to then to teach it to someone else. And I think, just as you were just talking about the lifestyle that you are encouraging your clients to adopt as you're walking them through it is now again you're trying to prove to yourself, show, all right, I'm going to test this on myself, and
Mhm.
learn things, and probably have, just like yesterday, learning things along the way, and which will then just give you more to give to your clients.
Absolutely.
So now, Brittany, you're a fitness coach and a trainer, a competitor, an athlete, but you also do other things too. What are some of the other things that you do that the audience may not be aware of?
So I also own a salon and I do hair, makeup, and photography. I've done modeling since I was 15 years old. And actually, when I moved to Chicago, went to Aveda for hair. And I was working on all the small featured films of Chicago, doing horror film makeup. And I really thought I would go to LA and learn how to do the face moldings and all this stuff. And so when we moved to Rockford, obviously none of that stuff is going on there. So I would work for salons, or I'd go back into the city and do hair and makeup for on set. And during COVID, I only started it because I wanted to do it for a hobby. Started doing boudoir photography for women, and I'd sit in with different photographers in town, and they'd teach me how to do lighting. And I took a few classes at Rock Valley. So I really like when people lose weight at my facility and then they want to do a boudoir photo shoot for inspiring themselves. And then I do the hair and makeup. And I just like overall helping people feel good, not only about their outside, but also what they're feeling on the inside. And I think when you really doll someone up or make them feel good within photography, it's like the whole picture. And then they can keep that for the rest of their lives. So I just really like giving that to people and inspiring others to be more hopeful to what they can become later in life.
And I guess just for the audience, if you could explain boudoir photography, what explain what that is.
The boudoir photography is more risque photography, or like when women or men, I've shot both, do more sexual photography. And you don't have to be nude or in any type of bustier. It's just the type of viewpoint from the photographer to you that would then insist of that. Which a lot of people, look at and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so tacky, or oh my God. And it's not, depending on how you shoot it and how you're presented. It'd be no different than you taking a selfie and you'd be like, oh, that's really tacky, or, oh, that's very pleasant. So it's the kind of like how they say smoke and mirrors. It's how you angle it and then appear through the camera to either being tasteful to not. So I just really like that type of photography. I do all photography, like family photos, weddings, but I just really like helping people feel good and inspired within themselves. And you definitely get it from shooting boudoir.
Well, and some of the stuff that I've seen that you've done, um, it it reminds me, tacky was not the thought that came to my mind.
Very
What
storybookish, or like fantasy, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, and I looked at it as more of like art. And some of the artists that I've worked with, either from a counseling perspective or a consulting perspective, that's what it reminded me of. And helping then the person who's being photographed to then be that character, that actor, releasing that or discovering that part within themselves. I imagine you've been able to have the good fortune of walking people through that.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing. Even like some of the most prettiest people I've shot, you can tell they either have body complex issues, or because that all comes to light when you do photography. You can see everybody's insecurities, and some of the most beautifulest people that I've ever seen in my life. You can tell through the camera that they have low self esteem, or they have, all these things. And so it makes you more mindful of a person working with all these types of people, that how you feel about yourself regardless of what you look like or where you've been, we're all the same. Like no matter what you try to project into the world, we we all have body complex issues. We all have things that we're trying to hide. And so I like bringing that stuff to life and trying to like push past those insecurities to make people feel more comfortable in their own skin, because that's all you have is your own body and your own mind. You're not getting a new one. That's what you get. And so the more you can love yourself and project that into society, I think the better off of a human you are, and better off as a partner or friend or whatever you're trying to pursue.
No, absolutely, Brittany. And if someone wanted to get in touch with you, either regarding photography or coaching, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you?
Probably on my cell phone. It's 779-221-1885. Either text or call. I'm really good at getting back to people. It won't be within 24 hours, just when I'm not with someone. Otherwise, I can be emailed at Brittany, Britney, Lynea, Lynea, 88 @gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, Brittany, if there is something that you wanted to leave the audience with, what's one thing you'd want to leave the audience with?
Um, Probably not to ever give up on yourself. Because like I said before, you are kind of your worst and best critic. So if you keep your mind in it, like a lot of my clients, as soon as they say I can't, I'm going to make you do that every single time, because that's your pivot point. Like if you can't do something and you're telling yourself you can, how are you ever going to do it? So always tell yourself, no matter how hard it is today, that you will, and that it's not a I can't. You will, maybe not today, but I think that that will drive you a lot further in life than always taking these steps back and saying I can't or I won't or not today.
No, I think that's great. And I agree with you, either as a trainer or a counselor or as a coach. When someone ceilings themselves with saying that I can't do something, you know, our responsibility is to help them take that on and build a plan and a ladder to be able to go through that. And so, Brittany, thank you very much for being with us on the journey, and I look forward to having some further conversations with you as time goes on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, if anybody is interested in learning more about what Brittany's doing, definitely reach out and contact her either through her through the phone number that she had given us, or her email, and then check out what she's doing in the community. And then as she gets closer to the show, she'll be posting. As her body's changing during that time period, and then after the show, that'll be just one thing that she'll be able to then bring back to her clients as well. As always, thank you for being here, and I look forward to being with you next week.